You are listening to the SDSU podcast, presented by the East Village Times, with your host, Andre Hagverdian. Welcome, listeners, back to another episode of the SDSU podcast. It's been a while. If you have been following along with San Diego State, obviously this is an important transition summer, moving from the Mountain West to the Pac-10, Pac-12, whatever you conference that you want to call it. You know, right now I think it's at 9 members, 8 football members, 9 basketball members with Gonzaga. But you know, July 1st was the official transition to a new conference for San Diego State. So it's an exciting time. Obviously, the football season will be next up with the season starting in early September, fall camp starting in early August. But this episode is a softball one. Our EVT's Bryant Thursby, who has been covering the softball team for the past couple years, had a chance to sit down and chat with head coach Stacey Nuveman-Deniz. Here is the interview that Bryant did with Coach, and hope you guys enjoy it as Bryant will be covering the softball team once again, and we'll bring you coverage of that. But this is a great interview that he did with Coach Nuveman-Deniz, kind of recapping, the disappointing season last year, and then the changes, incoming players in the transfer portal, and what we can expect from that team this year. So give it a listen.
So to start off the interview, I want to ask you about last season, obviously the results of last season, about what went wrong, what went right. Obviously going into the season, you guys were voted top 3 into the Mountain West, expected to make a run at a regional. You guys didn't even end up making the Mountain West tournament, unfortunately, in Nevada. How would you review last season and what went wrong, and what do you think actually went right about the season?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, obviously it was a disappointing season in terms of the results on the field. There's no way around that. That's just a fact. And it's something that myself and everyone associated with the program has been very clear and honest about, that we underachieved and we fell short. And so I think the focus for us has been, how do we move forward from that? What did we learn? And I think there was some things off the field from a culture standpoint that we sort of let kind of slip through the cracks that I think impacted us on the field. I think our mental kind of acuity and toughness and grit needed some improvement, needs some improvement moving forward. I think it was honestly a shared responsibility when I look back and when we reflect on the season. It wasn't necessarily one particular area that could sort of wear the blame. I think, the pitching staff certainly had some shortcomings. I think offensively we, struggled to score runs in critical moments when we needed to, leaving runners on base, things like that. Defensively, we were for the most part solid, but we had some lapses that impacted some games and some losses and things. So I think really it was a collective thing that as we've debriefed on the season and really started to turn the focus onto what do we need to do differently and how do we need to adjust. It's everybody and it's every aspect. I think it's accountability. It's, again, some cultural pieces, but for the most part, I think it's the mental side of the game. I think sometimes the game got too big for us, and we didn't handle those moments the way we have in the past as a unit. And so, that's going to be a point of emphasis for us moving forward is, how do we challenge our players? How do we kind of ramp up the way we train with a little more emphasis on pressure and, honestly winning and losing in practice? Like, you've got to have more of that. There's not a lot of room and time for feel good swings, for feel good bullpens. We need to push the envelope a little bit in that way. And I think, what we heard from our players and obviously the conversations we've had as a staff is, as much as it was a disappointment this season and, we fell far, well short of our expectations, sometimes that's almost a blessing in disguise. I think it's, falling short and having to go home extra early this year, which is nothing that we've experienced. I mean, in my 5 years as a head coach, it's the first year that we've not been to the postseason. And I don't mean postseason like Mountain West tournament. I mean like NCAA postseason. So that was very humbling. That was very, like a reality check of, okay, like we can't be comfortable and think that we've got it all figured out. And so I think that reality check has been certainly taken by me and everyone associated, all the staff. I mean, again, we've had some hard conversations, but I think we're all very well aligned and honestly excited to turn the page and move forward with our returning players. We've been busy in the portal bringing in some people that we think can really help us. And I think all said, the program is as much as we're coming off a tough year, I think we're in a really good place. And I think the alignment and the vision of what it's going to take to turn the corner and get back on track is pretty clear. And that's actually very exciting. So, we're turning a negative into a positive and going to use it as an opportunity to grow and to just reestablish the things that really make us good and make us special and get back to that.
Obviously, you kind of spoke a little bit right there and after the question and stuff about like how you guys are going to attack the portal and what you saw went wrong into last season. So coming into the portal, obviously you lost Gabrielle Tarones, Tylee Kitchen, two players entering the portal, but then you also bring in three new players, one from a Power Five and Olivia DiNardo, Carly, a pitcher from Pacific, Ava Sin, catcher from Seattle. What about last season and what about those three players that you brought in changes the way that you wanted to attack this upcoming season different to last year?
Yeah, I mean, every year in the portal and in the recruiting space, whether you're recruiting high school players or transfers, it's finding the full package. So it's not just the skill set, but it's also, I think, the mentality. And I think the mentality a little bit from a global kind of program perspective was lacking. I think we weren't as tough as we needed to be. We weren't as gritty. We weren't as, kind of wanting the ball, wanting the bat in my hands in the big moments. I think we got we got scared. The game got too big, too fast. And so our focus has been not only finding great players and people with skill sets that we think can contribute and translate for us to wins, but also the mindset, leadership qualities, again, like some of the intangible things, hard to measure for sure, hard to measure. And any coach would tell you, like, you're always hoping you can find that. But I think that was an extra point of emphasis because we felt like that was something that was maybe lacking a little bit. And, people that could come in and show the way, like, this is what toughness looks like. This is what gritty players, how they compete on a day-to-day basis. And so, we feel like we've done that with the players we brought in. We're still working in the portal. We're not done yet. And, again, the emphasis of the mindset, the mentality, again, hard thing to measure, hard thing to really, I guess even quantify, but also is so critical to success at the highest level. And so, we're really trying to work on that area.
Out of the three, for each individual player that you've gotten out of the transfer portal so far, Olivia DiNardo from Nebraska did not play this past year. It seemed like she had a hand issue. I don't know if it was something similar to what Shannon Cunningham had and why she didn't play. What gravitated you guys towards her and wanting to bring her in into the program?
Yeah, well, so when she transferred from Arizona to Nebraska, we actually recruited her at that time. That was a couple years ago, and had really good conversations with her at that time. Again, she she chose to go Power Four to Power Four, which again is typical, like, right, that happens all the time. I think ultimately we just really, going back to the intangible piece, obviously her skill set speaks for itself. I mean, her numbers in her career, they're impressive. She can hit with at the highest level of the game. Extremely competitive, extremely driven, motivated, all the things that I think can just bring that to our clubhouse, bring that to our day-to-day process. So we knew that about her before having another opportunity. For her, she wanted to get back closer to home. She's from the Bay Area. So we felt like it was a great opportunity for a second chance. And this time it worked out. So, this is just sort of how the portal works, right? It's not always a hit on the first go around, but sometimes it takes a couple tries. You miss out on someone in high school, and then they hit the portal a couple years later, and you have a chance at them then. So it's par for the course, I would say, for college athletics. But I think in the case of Liv, really excited for her and what she brings to the table, particularly from an offensive perspective, but also from a leadership, just grittiness perspective as well. I think she's going to be a big addition for us.
Now, going to the next hitter that you brought in, another catcher, you guys brought in Ava Sin from Seattle. She had a good year last year, really good year last year, hit 356, hit 7 home runs, had almost 30 extra base hits on the year. What can you tell me about her skill set, and what she brings to the table for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, she's coming off of a career year. She had a great year for Seattle. I think as a team, they had a little bit of a down year. So they struggled a little bit in terms of in the win loss. Excuse me, in the win loss column, but she has the ability to break open a game offensively. Does have a little bit of home run power, but I would say is probably more gap to gap, particularly in our park where we have a big field. So we see her more of a gap to gap type, but her consistency, she has good speed, she runs well, and she kind of fell on our lap in a lot of ways. She reached out to us as a grad transfer, having already applied to and gotten accepted to San Diego State. So she had a short list of schools that she was interested in for her desired master's program. So I feel like we got fortunate that she pursued us to a certain degree. And then once we got wind that she was available, and it was funny because we played Seattle U this year. And I didn't even remember her name, but I remembered they had a girl on their team. I was like, I really like the look of that kid, just the way her look in the box, her body language, her presence. And so it was just kind of a small world thing. Like when we played them, I remember saying that to Grace, to Coach French. We were sitting on the bucket in the dugout, and I said, "Man, I really like that kid. I like the way she looks in the box." And then you fast forward, 4 months or whatever, and she's having conversations with us about transferring. So we're excited about her. I think behind the dish, her experience, she was more of a DP the last couple of years at Seattle, but did do some catching in the early years of her career. And so it just gives us good depth at that position, experience, maturity. I mean, that's what I really like about her too is, again, you look at the intangible pieces when you bring in some of these older players that have been around the block. Liv DiNardo's played in a couple different programs. Obviously, Ava Sin was a 4-year player at Seattle and is now coming back, coming to San Diego. But just experience, maturity, understanding of the game at that level, understanding of the grind of college softball. Sometimes when you're recruiting freshmen out of high school, they have to go through that learning curve. Well, these players have already done that. So they've already, they understand the challenges. They've had great success. They know what the hard times feel like and look like. So I think that's one of the attractions to some of the older transfers bringing it. Even though you only get it for 1 year, they have the ability to really bring a presence to your team that's hard to simulate with a high school player, quite frankly. So, again, Avison is going to, both of those players we expect to be in the lineup offensively. At what position? I don't know. TBD. We'll have to just see where everything kind of pans out, but both of them can swing it exceptionally well, and both for power and average.
Bringing in 2 good bats like that's going to be absolutely huge for the lineup. Now, I want to move to the pitching side of things, where, like you said last year, the pitching kind of struggled a little bit, and so you get a freshman last year from Pacific in Carly. Can you pronounce her last name for me?
Mulcahy.
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 Okay, I
Yep.
thought that's how it was pronounced, but I just wanted to make sure. So Carly Mulcahy, a freshman out of Pacific last year, you bring her in. Seemingly didn't pitch a lot last year. Struggled a little bit when she did. Had 1 complete game. But what can you tell me about her pitching repertoire, and what made her interesting, and what made you guys want to bring her in?
Yeah, so we had some good conversations. I happen to know their coaching staff pretty well. In fact, the head coach at Pacific was our volunteer coach here at State years ago, but spent some time with Sam, and so had some conversations. Kaylani Ricketts, who is a national team professional player, is their pitching coach. So I talked to her about Carly as well, and both of them were really very complimentary of her skill set. And they actually even said that they felt, looking back, that they probably underutilized her this last year. That they were kind of in a situation of maybe holding her back to try to save her for games, and when they probably should have just put her out there and challenged teams. But bottom line is, we really, she's got her best stuff is down in the zone. So she's a drop ball pitcher, has a really good changeup, does a really nice job of not being afraid of going into lefties, which has been an issue, I think, for our staff, of like not, getting in there and getting on the hands of left-handed hitters. That's one of her specialties. She's got a lot of glove side movement, righty pitcher, so a lot of her stuff moves from right to left if you're facing home plate, right? So into lefties, away from righties, and just like a good upside. She throws hard. I mean, from the time she went in as a freshman in college, she was throwing like low 60s, like 60, 61, and by the end of the season, she was upper 60s. So like the velo is getting better. I think the upside is there, and I think probably my favorite thing beyond what she's capable of physically was just the conversations that she and I had about just mentality, and was extremely detailed in how she talked about her pitching, her repertoire, what she does well, what she needs to work on, to extremely sophisticated in a conversation. And I would say that was really impressive to me, because you don't always get that. A lot of times pitchers, maybe they know what their coaches tell them, but I could tell with Carly, it was deeper than that. She knows what she wants to do and needs to do, and she also is really good at owning what she's good at. She was very clear with describing what she does well. And I don't think a lot of young female players are great at explaining that and kind of verbalizing that. So I really like that. And I think, again, that's goes back to mentality. Her coaches described her as a gamer, someone that, wants the ball. She, they said when they would fall short, if they would lose a game, or she would, give up a hit or something, she wore it a little bit extra, more than maybe most of their players. And that says something to me, because everybody likes to be successful, but what happens, where do you go when you fall short? And, from an individual level, and then I think as a collective unit, and I touched on this earlier, the program got kicked in the gut a little bit this last season. Okay. Yep. Sure did. Now, what makes champions is how you recover from that, and what do you do moving forward. And so that's where, players like Carly, the way I've described, Liv DiNardo and Avison, like that's what they bring, is they bring that, maybe some of those missing pieces of, that grit, that, I want people that are a little pissed off when we lose. If you're okay with losing, then you're in the wrong place, right? Like, none of us we should never be okay with that. Doesn't mean want to be sore losers, but we've got to be willing to look ourselves in the mirror and see where our faults are, what we can do differently, and make the changes, make the adjustments. And so I think all three of them are going to be great additions in a lot of different ways, to kind of get us back on track and bring back that championship mindset, that championship standard that we have established. Again, a bad year happens to every good program. It happens, right? It's how do you move forward? And that's where we're at right now.
Three good additions so far. Now, you said earlier in the interview that you guys are not done in the transfer portal. Are you looking to add another pitcher? Are you looking to add some depth to the lineup, some depth on the
Yeah.
bench? What are you guys looking at?
At the moment, we are looking to add pitching depth. That's our number one priority. If we cannot, we're not desperate. We feel good about the staff we have right now. In addition to the freshman pitcher we have coming in, which we're excited about. So if we can't find the right pitcher, then we would potentially look to bolster the lineup offensively.
And so I want to talk about the state of college softball right now and NIL and everything. You had two really good performers last year in Kayla Pollard and Quinn Wyke. We know how great Quinn is with the glove, how outstanding she is, but she improved on that last year in her sophomore season with the bat. The bat turned the corner, and Kayla Pollard was one of the best players in the Mountain West. How huge is it in this NIL era to keep those two players in your lineup?
You know, the state of college. It's college athletics. It's not a softball problem, I wouldn't say. I think we're seeing it show its head more in softball. I think this summer's transfer portal madness was on another level compared to like last year. So you can only imagine where it's headed, right? Just the way that we're moving and where we're headed towards. It's obviously there's three prongs to it now. So you've got your high school recruiting, which you still have to put attention and time into and nurture relationships and identify players and all this. Then there's the retention piece on top of obviously attracting transfer players. But the retention is kind of I would say, an underappreciated aspect of recruiting right now. Because it's hard. It's hard to do. And it's not even just hard for San Diego State. It's hard for everybody. I mean, Oklahoma lost great players. Not everybody lost great players, but no one is immune from losing significant pieces of their puzzle. I mean, lots of all Americans and all SEC and all Big Ten players hit the portal, even though they were in what you would say were good situations, right? Like they had starting roles on good teams. So the ability to retain key players is as important as attracting and identifying prospective transfers or freshmen, incoming high school kids. And that comes down to, I think, number one, I believe, is the culture. Is if you have players that are truly connected to, bought into, in love with their experience, they're less likely to be looking elsewhere. Now, sometimes it's a dollars and cents thing. We've had players that I firmly, truly believe loved their time here, but they wanted something different. They wanted a little payday, or they wanted, maybe a brighter light or bigger stage kind of thing. But that's the challenge, right? Is how do you keep people where they're having the experience they want, both from a softball perspective as well as a personal and academic perspective, but also just not taking it personally. I mean, that's the other thing is we're going to do everything in our power to retain our best players. That's part of the deal. And sometimes that comes through rev sharing. Sometimes that comes through, nurturing relationships and things like that. And just, really, again, ensuring that the experience is what they hope it would be. But sometimes you just can't give them what they want. And, that's kind of my philosophy on it is if I can't give you what you want in this program, I wish you the best. I want you to go and find whatever it is, because you're not going to be here and be happy if we're not giving you whatever it is that you want, that we're incapable of giving you. If you want to play every game on ESPN, you know what? The reality is I can't give you that. That's just a fact, right? Do you want to compete for championships? Do you want to be in an environment that you're going to be cared for and respected, and you're going to be pushed and challenged and developed and all that? Yep, I can do that for you. And I can do that in America's finest city. But if there's something that, if you want all the bells and whistles and you want the big, Power Four resources and all that, guess I'm in reality about that. I don't have all those things. Do I have enough? Absolutely. Will you feel like you're, missing out on things? I don't think so. But if you feel like you are, then you got to go do that. And so, I think in my opinion, too many coaches, especially at the mid-major level, they resent that. They resent that feeling of like people, thinking like they could do better than your program. I'm like, you know what? My program is damn good. My program is awesome. You're going to have a phenomenal life experience. If that's not enough for you and you want a paycheck, or you want, again, to play on TV every week, then you know what? I can't offer you that. That's not what this is about. So, and I think that in some ways is why our success has been high with Power Four transfers who out of high school get attracted to those big things. They get attracted to the football game with 100,000 people, and they get attracted to, the the bells and whistles and the resources that maybe some of these big schools have. And then they get there and they realize at the end of the day, that's not enough. That doesn't make you happy on a day-to-day basis. And they come here. Kayla Pollard is a great example. She didn't have great experiences. She was at two of the biggest schools in the country. She was at Florida and Oregon. They have all the things, all the resources. It wasn't enough. It didn't fill her cup. She comes to San Diego State, and it's like she's finally becoming the player that everyone knew she could be. Why she was the top 15 recruit coming out of high school is because she's now kind of in an environment that suits her. So, it is what it is. We're going to, retention it's not a perfect science. We're going to do the best we can. I hope that Quinn Wyke finishes her career here. I hope nothing more than for that to happen.
Very, very good stuff, Coach. I have a couple more questions. Obviously, with the AUSL now in its second season and the way that college softball has been going the last couple of years, the popularity of softball has been exponential, it seems like, in the
Yes.
last couple of years. How awesome is that for you as somebody who's a pioneer of the softball industry, being at UCLA, being an All-American, being on Team USA, winning silver medals, getting awards? How does it feel that the popularity of softball just seems to be keep growing exponentially year after year?
It brings me great pride. I mean, I have loved this game since, I was a teenager, and it's more than just my career. It's more than just my history or my past, but it's very much in my DNA. I mean, to the point where my husband and my family is like, Mom, seriously, you need to watch more softball. Like, you coach it all season, all year long, and then you still watch it on TV when you have a chance to. So it's so validating to know that the efforts and the time and the years where we didn't get the same level of respect, we didn't get the same level of coverage or, exposure it's so cool. I mean, I think back to, when I played in college and the years are passing and it's getting further and further into history. But, when I played in college, the only game that was on TV was like the championship game. Like you couldn't find a regular season game. Well, then as my college career went along, maybe there would be one game a year or two games a year for the whole country where a softball game would be on TV. And then, you even look back to like what the Hall of Fame stadium now it's called Devon Park, but the Oklahoma City facility, what it was back in the late '90s when I started in college to now, and just how much that whole facility has grown and just the whole thing. It's unreal. I mean, I know even from last summer to this summer, I saw recently the AUSL has seen like 188% increase in TV viewership in 1 year. So that's awesome. Like those are the kinds of things that we need to see to then have the investment continue, because ultimately that's what it comes down to is the companies, the individuals, the organizations that are willing to invest in the sport is how we continue to grow. Because the exposure is awesome, but it costs money, right? It costs money for the AUSL to do what they're doing. It costs money for universities to put in money to upgrade facilities, to pay coaches more money, to increase revenue sharing pots. All of those things, like those are all parts of the whole process. And as much as it's frustrating as a coach trying to compete with some of these, NIL and rev sharing opportunities, it's also an awesome thing. Like I love that there are players in our sport making $50,000, $100,000 in college. Are we in a position to pay people $100,000? We're not. But like that's happening, and that's coming, right? That's coming around the bend, and rev sharing, and I know that's one piece of it, but it's all to me a sign of the sport growing. And again, I look back to sort of the humble beginnings, and it's so cool. It's so cool and validating, and it makes me proud to just be a small piece of the history of the game, and just see how far we've come, and that we're still going. We haven't even reached the pinnacle yet. We're just on the way up, and it's really cool to be a part of and to see that happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've been a fan of softball since I was young and everything because my mom played softball in high school. My cousin, she plays softball collegiately out in Georgia and everything. And seeing it grow and seeing like my cousin and everything like be happy about it and stuff like that, and me still being able to watch on ESPN, it's awesome to see. It's awesome to watch.
Well, and I can tell you this. I mean, I say this, I've said this over the years many times. When I was growing up as an athlete, I didn't have females to look up to because I wasn't exposed to females, especially not in my sport. Maybe I might think like, you know, uh, Chris Evert, or like name off like a tennis player or somebody like that that maybe was like a household name, or Martina Navratilova or Billie Jean King. Like these were female athletes that people knew the name of. During the Olympic year, you might know FloJo, or you might know a gymnast or something like that. But there was no softball players to look up to. My heroes were male baseball players or basketball players. I wore number 33 because of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Like a sport that wasn't even my main sport, but that's what I saw. That was what I was exposed to. And the fact now that young girls coming up through sport, softball, basketball, volleyball, whatever it might be, have females in their sport that they can. My hero is boom. My hero is Nigeri Kennedy. My hero is Bubba Nichols. My hero is fill in the blank, right? Rachel Garcia or uh, Carlin Pickens or any of these, are now in the softball. If you're a softball household family, your daughter has dozens of people that she looks up to and that she knows the name of and gets an autograph signed by and all these things. Like that is such a cool shift that I didn't have growing up. I didn't have exposure to that. So the guys that I looked up to were men, it was men because that's who I saw on TV. So I think that's a small but very powerful example of the ways that the sport has continued to grow and expand in really cool and powerful ways.
Yeah, one more question. I want to say thank you for doing this interview. First off, I know transfer portal, summer stuff with family and everything. Maybe you got a couple vacations, really busy. So I appreciate you doing this interview.
No, it's all good.
But one last question. What are your expectations heading into the fall with the team and everything, with team scrimmages of schools around here? And what are you guys looking to attack this upcoming fall?
Yeah, so we actually just finished our fall schedule yesterday, got it all kind of finalized. So every college team gets 8 fall scrimmages. That's kind of just the NCAA rule. That's the maximum. And so of our 8 scrimmages, we've got 6 D1s. So we're playing UCSD, USD, LNU, Cal State Fullerton, ASU, and Long Beach State. And then we're gonna play Cal State San Marcos, which was the runner-up in the national D2, so like a legit D2 team. And we're playing Palomar College, who won the state championship in the JC level. So we stacked our fall schedule by design. We don't always have the ability to make it that tough, but I just, we need to be challenged. I think our push this fall is going to be to really ramp up the intensity, ramp up the pressure, and just really put ourselves in the cooker a little bit. And I think just kind of tenderize our squad so that when we get into the spring, we feel like we've been through it, and not that we didn't do anything competitive before, but I think the emphasis is really going to be how we can kind of amp up the pressure situations and make it hard, make this fall really hard and uncomfortable, physically uncomfortable, mentally and emotionally uncomfortable, and just challenge our team to find ways to better handle the moments. And honestly, I'm genuinely excited. I think, we've got a really good plan that we're in the process of formulating as a staff, and getting some input from some other people that we trust in sport, and just some ways that we can level up how we train and how we develop players from a physical as well as mental and emotional standpoint. And I'm excited for what's to come. Obviously, the move to the Pac-12 is another exciting and kind of intriguing and interesting storyline as well. What is that going to ultimately look like? We'll see, right? We'll see. And I think all of us in every sport, is in the same boat of, excited, but also, unsure like how it's all going to play out. And, but again, looking forward to the competitive level, rising and our conference in softball has hired some really good coaches. There's like three of the Pac-12, and now Mountain West, now Pac-12 schools have brand new coaches. And so I think there's going to be some good, young, motivated people in the conference, and obviously we're joining, Oregon State and Texas State's legit, so it's going to be a dogfight. I'm excited for it.
Well, thank you very much, Coach, for doing this. You have a great rest of your day. You have a great 4th of July, a safe 4th of July, and have a great rest of your summer.
You got it. Same to you, Bryant. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You are listening to the SDSU podcast, presented by the East Village Times, with your host, Andre Hagverdian.